I'm Meg Randall. I'm the head of the designer handbag and fashion sales at Chiswick Auctions, and I'm going to talk about three of the most iconic handbags of the 20th century. The three handbags that I'm going to talk about are the most popular handbags we have at auction, the most valuable handbags that come up at auction, and also the three that prove to be the best investment pieces. The three that I'm going to talk about are, of course, the Hermes Birkin, the Hermes Kelly, and the Chanel 255. So we'll start with the Hermes Kelly. Designed in the late 19th century, originally as a handbag to hold your saddle. It was originally called a sac à pêche, or in other words, a top-handled handbag. It was much larger, obviously, then to hold a saddle, but by the 30s, it was beginning to represent a handbag that looked more like the one we have today. The sac à pêche didn't reach its popularity until the 1950s, when Grace Kelly of Monaco used hers to hide her pregnancy bump from the paparazzi. Immediately afterwards, it was a huge success and everybody started calling it the Hermes Kelly, but it wasn't until 1977 when they officially renamed the bag after her. The Hermes Kelly is a very elegant bag designed to be held in the hand or more recently across the body with a shoulder strap. It's proved to be one of Hermes' most popular handbags. In fact, in the last 10 years, the price of an Hermes Kelly has risen 350%. In fact, last year at auction, I had an Hermes Kelly that I sold for £7,500. That bag was bought a decade earlier for just over €4,000 in Paris, which shows you the sort of return that you can get from an Hermes Kelly bag. I'm now going to talk about the Hermes Birkin, which is the world's most expensive handbag. In fact, one sold at auction last year for almost $380,000. The Hermes Birkin was first designed in the 80s by a chance encounter between Jean-Philippe Dumas and Jane Birkin, the French actress and singer. They met on a flight, and the story goes that Jane Birkin's large wicker basket fell out of the overhead locker, and as she scrambled to pick up all her pieces, she complained to her seatmate that she couldn't find a large leather handbag with pockets big enough to hold all of her stuff. And so the story goes that Dumas then pulled out a notebook, sketched the outline of a Birkin, and the handbag was born. So that was in 1986 that they released it, but it wasn't until the 90s that it really gained popularity with the vogue for it bags. The Birkin itself appeared in lots of films, TV shows, it featured in Sex and the City, and it really created a hype around the brand. Now, Hermes have been very clever with their marketing around the Birkin in that they don't really market it, and they don't produce many of them. In fact, one craftsman takes about 40 hours to create just one handbag, and they produce them in very limited numbers. So Birkins today retail from upwards of £8,000, depending on the leather, the size, the material. And you cannot simply walk into your Hermes boutique with your £8,000 or £10,000 and buy a Birkin. You might have to be on a waiting list for up to a year or more than a year. You might have to buy some other slightly cheaper bags like Kelly's or Constance's in order to be allowed to buy an Hermes Birkin, which means that buying at auction is a really great opportunity, as if you have the money, you can bid in an auction and you can walk away with it the same day. Like all of the bags I'm talking about, the Hermes Birkin has risen in terms of the price that Hermes charge for it and also the resale market for it. There is an annual return on your Hermes Birkin of 14%, which is higher than the return on gold or other precious metals, so it has proved time and again to be a really sound investment. Like all of the bags I'm talking about, the Hermes Birkin has risen in terms of the price that Hermes charge for it and also the resale market for it. There is an annual return on your Hermes Birkin of 14%, which is higher than the return on gold or other precious metals, so it has proved time and again to be a really sound investment. I'm now going to talk about the Chanel 2.55 handbag, one of the most popular handbags in the world. The 2.55, as the name suggests, was designed by Coco Chanel in February, the second month, 1955. It was in fact one of the first handbags to feature a crossbody strap or a chain handle. Before the 2.55, most handbags were held in the hand, meaning that the owner couldn't use both of her hands at the same time. This is one of the first handbags that thought about being hands-free, giving women greater mobility. If you remember, Chanel was the first person really to put women in trousers in order to let them walk more freely. So in many ways, it's an early feminist icon of fashion. The zip pocket on the front flap of the 2.55 is for your secret love letters, as Coco herself was embroiled in many torrid affairs. The original turn lock at the front was slightly different from this. It's now known as the Mademoiselle turn lock, as Coco herself never married, and it's more of a rectangular shape. Karl Lagerfeld, the artistic director of Chanel in the 1980s, designed the CC logo that it's now so famous for. When this handbag was first designed in 1955, the original price was the equivalent of about £150. Today they retail for between £3,000 and £4,000, depending again on the size, the leathers and the materials, which really shows you how much they've gone up in value. The Chanel 2.55 is one of the world's most popular handbags, and in recent years Chanel has increased its prices to reflect this. In fact, in the last 5 years they've increased their prices by 70%, and this reflects in the auction market and the second-hand market for Chanel 2.55s.